My name is Margaret Thornfield, and I'm 72 years old. What I'm about to tell you happened just 6 months ago, but it feels like a lifetime. Some of you watching might think I'm a bitter old woman. Others might call me brave. But before you judge me, let me tell you my story from the beginning. I was born in 1952 in a small town where everyone knew everyone's business. My father, Harold, worked at the textile mill, and my mother, Edith, took in laundry to make ends meet. We weren't rich, but we had love, respect, and dignity. My parents taught me that your word was your bond, and that family came first, always. When I was 22, I married Robert Thornfield. He was handsome, charming, and had big dreams of making it in the construction business. We were young and in love, ready to conquer the world together. Within 2 years, we were blessed with our son, Benjamin. He was the light of our lives, the reason we worked so hard, the future we were building everything for. Robert started his construction company with nothing but a borrowed truck and determination. I worked as a seamstress during the day and kept his books at night. We scrimped and saved every penny. I remember eating beans and rice for weeks so we could buy Benjamin new school clothes. I mended my own dresses until they were more patches than original fabric, but my boy always looked presentable. The early years were brutal. Robert would leave before dawn and come home covered in dust and sweat. I'd have dinner waiting, no matter how tired I was from my own long day. We'd sit at our small kitchen table, the three of us, planning for the future. "One day, Maggie," Robert would say, "we'll have a big house and Ben will go to college, and we'll never have to worry about money again." If you're enjoying this story of struggle and determination, please hit that subscribe button. It helps us share more real-life stories that matter. Those dreams kept us going through the lean times. When Benjamin was 8, Robert's company finally started to grow. We moved from our tiny apartment to a modest house with a yard where Ben could play. It wasn't much, but it was ours. I planted roses by the front porch and painted the kitchen yellow because it reminded me of sunshine on the darkest days. Benjamin was a bright child, curious about everything. I spent hours helping him with homework, reading to him, teaching him values. "Remember, son," I'd tell him, "we may not have much money, but we have our dignity and our love for each other. That's worth more than all the gold in the world." As the years passed, Robert's business continued to grow. By the time Benjamin was in high school, we were comfortable. Not wealthy, but comfortable. We could afford to send him to college, something neither Robert nor I had been able to do. I was so proud when he got accepted to the state university with a partial scholarship. "You've worked so hard for this, Benjamin," I told him the day we got the acceptance letter. "Your father and I are so proud of you." But something changed in Benjamin during college. When he came home for holidays, he seemed different. He'd make comments about our simple house, our old-fashioned furniture. He started calling me Ma, instead of Mama, like he had all his life. Small things, but they stung. After graduation, Benjamin got a job in the city. He rarely called, and when he did visit, it was brief and strained. He'd look around our home like he was embarrassed by it, by us. I tried to talk to Robert about it, but he'd just say, "He's young, Maggie. He's finding his way." When Benjamin got married to a woman named Victoria from a wealthy family, we weren't even consulted about the wedding plans. We were told the date and time like guests, not the groom's parents. At the wedding, Victoria's family looked at us like we were hired help. I wore my best dress, the one I'd bought for special occasions, but I felt invisible. The distance between Benjamin and us grew wider after his marriage. Grandchildren came, little Emma and Thomas, but we barely knew them. They'd visit, maybe twice a year, always briefly, always with Benjamin checking his watch, and Victoria looking uncomfortable in our modest home. Robert passed away suddenly when he was 68. A heart attack at the construction site he was inspecting. Just like that, the man who'd worked his whole life to build something lasting was gone. I was devastated, lost, and suddenly very alone. At the funeral, Benjamin seemed more concerned with the business details than with comforting his grieving mother. "We need to talk about Dad's affairs," he said the day after we buried his father. Not, "How are you holding up, Mom?" or, "What can I do to help you?" Just business. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt stories about family, love, and life's unexpected turns. Robert had built his construction company into something substantial. When he died, it was worth nearly $2 million. Our house was paid off, and there were savings and investments. Benjamin, as our only child, stood to inherit everything when I passed away. But instead of the inheritance bringing us closer, it seemed to drive us further apart. Benjamin would call occasionally, but the conversations always seemed to turn to money. "Are you managing okay financially, Mother?" he'd ask in a tone that suggested he was really asking. "When are you going? To die so I can inherit." The breaking point came 6 months ago. Benjamin and his family came for what I thought was a genuine visit. It was Emma's 16th birthday, and I'd bought her a beautiful antique locket that had belonged to my grandmother. It wasn't expensive, by today's standards, but it was precious to our family. Emma opened the gift and smiled politely. "Thank you, Grandmother Margaret," she said formally. But I could see Victoria whispering to Benjamin, and their expressions were not kind. After dinner, I overheard them talking in the living room. I was in the kitchen, cleaning up, when Benjamin's voice carried clearly. "I can't take much more of this, Victoria," he was saying. "Look at this place. It's like a museum of poor people's dreams. And that gift she gave Emma, it's probably worth $20. I'm embarrassed to bring you and the kids here." "When is she going to move to a retirement home?" Victoria asked. "This house is worth good money, and she's just wasting it living here alone. Plus, she could sell the business and give us the money now instead of making us wait." "I know," Benjamin replied, "but you know how stubborn she is. She clings to this place like it's a palace. Sometimes I'm ashamed to tell people where I came from." Those words hit me like a physical blow. Ashamed. My son was ashamed of me, of the home his father and I had worked so hard to build, of the life we'd created with love and sacrifice. I stood in that kitchen, surrounded by the memories of 50 years of marriage and motherhood, and something broke inside me. But it wasn't just heartbreak. It was anger. Pure, righteous anger at the ingratitude, the disrespect, the casual cruelty of it all. They left the next morning with polite kisses and empty promises to visit again soon. But I knew the truth now. I wasn't a beloved mother and grandmother. To them, I was an obstacle standing between Benjamin and his inheritance. That night, I sat in Robert's chair, the one he'd saved up 6 months to buy because he wanted something comfortable to read the paper in, and I made a decision that would change everything. I called my lawyer, Harold Pemberton, first thing Monday morning. Harold had been Robert's friend since childhood and had handled all our legal affairs for decades. "Harold," I said, "I want to make some changes to my will, and I want to do something else, something that might surprise you." When I told him my plan, he was quiet for a long moment. "Margaret," he finally said, "are you sure about this? It's quite drastic." "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I told him. Over the next 2 weeks, Harold helped me set everything up. We contacted a local television station that had a morning show featuring human interest stories. When I told them what I wanted to do, they were fascinated and agreed immediately. I didn't tell Benjamin what was coming. I simply called him and said I had something important to discuss with him and that he should watch Channel 7's morning show the following Tuesday at 9 o'clock. "What's this about, Mother?" he asked, sounding irritated that I was being mysterious. Just watch, Benjamin. You'll understand everything. The morning of the broadcast, I woke up before dawn. I put on my best blue dress, the one Robert had always said made my eyes sparkle, and did my hair the way I used to for church on Sundays. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw not a bitter old woman, but a woman who had finally found her backbone again. At the television station, they were kind and professional. The host, a lovely young woman named Sarah Chen, sat with me before we went on air. "Are you nervous, Mrs. Thornfield?" she asked. "No, dear," I said. "I'm ready." Please subscribe and share this story with others who understand that respect and dignity matter at any age. When the cameras rolled, I told my story, not with tears or hysteria, but with the calm dignity my parents had taught me all those years ago. "My name is Margaret Thornfield," I began, looking directly into the camera. "I'm 72 years old, and I've spent 50 years building a life with my late husband, Robert. We worked hard, saved every penny, and built a construction business worth nearly $2 million. We did this not for ourselves, but for our son Benjamin, so he'd never have to struggle the way we did." I paused, letting that sink in. Last month, I discovered that my son is ashamed of me, ashamed of the home his father and I built with our own hands, ashamed of the life we created through honest work and sacrifice. He can't wait for me to die so he can inherit what we've built. Sarah leaned forward. That must have been heartbreaking to hear. It was, I admitted. But it was also clarifying. You see, Robert and I didn't build our business just to create wealth. We built it to create a legacy of hard work, integrity, and family loyalty. If my son can't appreciate those values, then he doesn't deserve the fruits of them. "What are you going to do?" Sarah asked. I smiled. "I'm going to sell it all. Today. Right here on television." The next hour was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. With Harold's help and the television station's cooperation, we had set up a live auction. The construction business, our house, even Robert's collection of antique tools, everything was going up for sale. The phones at the station started ringing immediately. Local businessmen who had known Robert called in with bids. Real estate. Investors wanted the house. Collectors were interested in the tools. By 10:30 that morning, everything was sold. The construction business went to Marcus Thompson, a young contractor who had worked for Robert and promised to keep all the current employees. Our house sold to a young family with children who would fill it with laughter again. Even Robert's tools found homes with people who would appreciate their craftsmanship. When it was over, I had raised $2.3 million. "So what will you do with all this money, Mrs. Thornfield?" Sarah asked. "I'm going to live," I said. "Really live. I'm going to travel to all the places Robert and I dreamed of seeing but never could because we were always working. I'm going to donate to charities that help young families achieve their dreams. And yes, I'm going to enjoy some luxuries I've never had." "What about your son's inheritance?" "My son will inherit exactly what he's earned through his love and respect for his parents," I said. "Which is to say, nothing." I knew Benjamin was watching. I knew his phone was probably ringing off the hook with friends and neighbors calling to tell him what they'd seen. But I felt no guilt, only relief. After the show, I did exactly what I'd promised. I bought a small condominium in a retirement community where I could make friends and not worry about maintaining a big house. I booked a cruise to Alaska, something Robert and I had talked about for years. I donated $200,000 to a scholarship fund for children of working-class families. Benjamin called that afternoon. He was furious, of course. "How could you do this to me?" he shouted into the phone. "That was my inheritance, my children's future." "No, Benjamin," I said calmly. "That was your father's, and my life's work. We built it through love and sacrifice, two things you seem to have forgotten the value of." "You're being ridiculous," he said. "So what if I made a few comments? You're my mother. You're supposed to forgive me." I do forgive you, I told him. But forgiveness doesn't mean I have to reward disrespect and ingratitude. Victoria's family will never let me live this down. Do you know how embarrassing this is? And there it was. Not, I'm sorry, Mom. Not, I was wrong to say those things. Just concern about his embarrassment. Benjamin, I said, if you're more worried about what Victoria's family thinks than about the feelings of the woman who gave you life and sacrificed everything for your future, then I've made the right decision. He hung up on me. That was 6 months ago. Benjamin has called twice since then, both times to argue about my decision. Emma sent me a text message on my birthday, a brief, polite happy birthday, Grandmother Margaret. Thomas hasn't contacted me at all. Do I regret what I did? Not for a single moment. I've been on 3 trips since then. The Alaska cruise was beautiful. I met wonderful people and saw whales and glaciers that took my breath away. I visited Ireland, where Robert's family came from, and Scotland, where mine originated. I'm planning a trip to Italy next spring. More importantly, I've found myself again. For too many years, I let myself become small, apologetic for my simple life and modest means. I forgot that Robert and I had built something meaningful, something to be proud of. The retirement community where I live now is full of people with interesting stories. My neighbor Eleanor was a nurse in Vietnam. Frank down the hall was a jazz musician in Chicago. We have book clubs and game nights and trips to the theater. I'm not lonely anymore. People ask me if I hope Benjamin will apologize and try to reconcile. Honestly, I do hope that. I love my son, despite everything, but I won't apologize for standing up for my dignity and Robert's memory. A few weeks ago, I got a letter from Marcus Thompson, the young man who bought Robert's business. He wrote to tell me that business was booming and that he'd hired 5 new employees. He said he thought of Robert every day and tried to run the company with the same integrity and fairness Robert had shown. Your husband would be proud, he wrote, and I hope you know that his legacy lives on in the right hands. That letter meant more to me than any amount of money could. I've also heard through mutual friends that Benjamin and Victoria are having financial difficulties. Apparently, they'd been counting on my inheritance to pay off some debts and make investments. I can't say I'm not satisfied by that news, though I don't wish them real hardship. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never overheard that conversation. Would I have lived out my remaining years quietly, grateful for their occasional visits, pretending not to notice their condescension? Would I have died knowing my son was more interested in my money than my love? I shudder to think of it. What I've learned in these past 6 months is that it's never too late to reclaim your dignity. It's never too late to stand up for what you believe in. And it's never too late to choose how your story ends. My story isn't ending in bitterness or loneliness. It's not ending with me being taken for granted by the child I sacrificed everything for. Instead, it's ending with adventure, with new friendships, with the satisfaction of knowing I honored Robert's memory and our shared values. To those of you who are watching this and thinking about your own relationships with adult children, let me say this. Love doesn't mean being a doormat. Respect is earned, not inherited. And your dignity is worth more than keeping peace at any price. I hope Benjamin finds his way back to the values Robert and I tried to teach him. I hope he learns to appreciate what he had before it's too late. But whether he does or not, I'm living proof that it's possible to write a new chapter in your story, no matter how many chapters have already been written. My name is Margaret Thornfield. I'm 72 years old, and I'm finally living life on my own terms.